Welcome to today's episode of the CIO WaterCooler TV. I'm lucky to be joined by Avril Chester, CTO at the Royal Pharmaceutical Society. Avril is here to help us discuss the subject of transform. How are you today, Avril?
I'm really good. It's so good to see you again.
I imagine this first question, we could break it down in a couple of ways. What does transform mean for you and for your organization? You are reasonably new to the organization, as we've said, so it might be that transform means one thing to you and it also means something in an organizational sense or setting, but how would you go about answering that, first of all?
So I think some of us have a bit of a problem with the word itself, and I think with this series what's great is you're exploring different words, and I know modernise is one of the words on there, and that for me is obviously the operational keep kind. You've got your technical depth, and when you look at transform, it's very much broader. It is much broader than technology. This is about changing the way you do things, changing the way you think, changing the way that you can engage with your customers and members. And it's really about translating that into a new way of working. So how that comes about could be a series of technology solutions, process improvements, and things like that. But I think the err on the caution of where I sort of started is the difficulty with the word sometimes is some colleagues and of course some board members hear the word transform, hear the word transformational, and they think it implies an end state. And at that end state, we're all going to go back to normal. So I think there's always a flip side to this. It's a continuous way of thinking about addressing and connecting with your members and customers, or whatever your business model is, and really challenging the way you work.
You say they're really challenging the way that you work. I would imagine that the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, in one respect, is quite a traditional organization. What is it trying to achieve from its transformation plans?
I'm really, really impressed with it. Firstly, it's not using the word transformational, which is wonderful. I'm not having to do some expectation setting that this is continuous. Actually, they're approaching it as a good business practice. We know we need to remain current. So we know we need to be attracting and retaining members. We know we want to grow our pharmaceutical press business, and we've got such richness of content. So how do we utilize that better? And what's absolutely great is everyone's just asking the questions. We may, and that's what we're doing together, is working out how and what the impact is, and obviously focus on those outcomes. But what's so exciting about this organization, which is why I moved there, is they're asking the right questions. They're asking, how do we improve? Where do we go? What do we need to do? Let's road test this idea. Let's try this out. And I think that's incredibly healthy, especially for quite an old organization.
Obviously, you're joining that organization on that journey, with a lot still to be achieved, and I suppose it's obviously, as we've stated, there will always be something to strive towards. There's no end point. But when you think about the roles that you've had previously, and you think about your peers across the industry, what are the main challenges when organizations are trying to implement changes? Because transformation is a topic that's been so heavily used.
Oh, it is. And actually, the challenge is still very much where we are in this organization as well, because you get excited about the opportunities, because you get driven by the outcomes you can achieve. And particularly, I'm very lucky. I work with purpose. A lot of the organizations I've worked with have an outcome and an impact on society. So that really does excite you. But actually, there can be too much change for the organization at once. It's, even if you can afford, let's pretend for a minute, you can afford all the resources in the world to deliver that project in whatever methodology that you want to talk about. Even if you can do that, the organization needs to absorb that change in the way of working. They need to learn how to think differently and use that technology, or reach out, or do things. And if you're doing so many things at once, it can get really, really lost, really confusing. The impact get lost. So it's much, much more about prioritization and really trying not to get overexcited and chuck everything into the same roadmap and let's do it all now. And it's like, yeah, lovely, but you really need to embed some of the change and learn from that, and then continue on the next bit.
Who's driving transformation? The IT or the business?
We're all one organization. I really, really, we say, oh, we're the business and we're the technology team and things like that. It feels very sort of a supplier relationship type thing, whereas actually we're all here to drive the purpose of the organization and the results we need to achieve. So the best route, which is what's happening at the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, is they obviously know the environment of the pharmacist a lot better than I do. Whilst I go to a pharmacy, that's very different from understanding the struggles in the career cycle and things like that. But they do need to work with us and vice versa in that collaborative stage, because I can talk about art of the possible, give them ideas, have some things, which then makes them think, oh, hang on a minute, what about this? Or how about that? And by working things through and getting those different opinions together, I think collectively you can really drive the agenda forward. And it's got to be a collective. Once we're there in terms of the how and the delivery, and they're the whats and the whys, it's only collective does it become the magic.
Let me try and be a little bit more challenging then. Who should be driving transformation? Now, I know that you've just said it's a collective thing, but there's obviously an element that someone has to take the lead and there have to be sponsors. I would have an inkling of what your answer might be, but is there a case that there should be one element that is driving transformation as opposed to another element that is sponsoring it?
Got you. I'm going to go the board and execs top down.
Yeah.
If there's no sponsorship at the top, if there's no drive and support from the board or assembly or, whatever your, governance bodies are there, if they may need help guiding and, the thoughts of what the strategy will look like, but the CEO and the board and the assembly are the ones that actually drive it.
Lovely piece of learning there for anyone that's also on that journey. Look, it's wonderful to talk to you again. It's great to hear that you've got an exciting new challenge to get your teeth sunk into. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And if you've enjoyed this episode of the CIO WaterCooler TV, please do stay on the website, have a look around. There is plenty more content.